49ers OTAs begins today. Where does Brandon Aiyuk rank in the top 32 wide receivers according to PFF? And what the hell did TJ Hushmanzada say? Stick around right after this. We'll talk about it all now. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Rob Stats Guerrera filling in for Steph Sanchez. And this is the Bully Ball Podcast, the only podcast that is still tired from dancing at a wedding this entire weekend. But Rob, loving the facial hair. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. I do enjoy a good wedding, though not for the dancing. That's, as you could tell, to look at me, I'm not much of a dancer, but I do enjoy a good wedding.
You'll be shocked. The alcohol does a lot of dancing. You know, that's where it comes from. But what is it? A wedding crashes? It was the booze dancing. But incredible time. Again, congratulations to my friend Pedro and his beautiful wife, Nicole. And thank you for having me, take part in that as a groomsman. Very fun. But we're not here to talk about weddings. We're here to talk about the San Francisco 49ers. And speaking of people talking about the San Francisco 49ers, another pocket watcher has entered the chat, Rob. And his name is TJ Hushmanzada. Now, I want to clear something up before we get into this as well, too. TJ Hushmanzada is also Brandon Aiyuk's wide receiver coach. However, what I gather from what he said, this isn't what Brandon Aiyuk feels. This is what a talking head who happens to be Brandon Aiyuk's coach feels. So can we stop with the yelling about headlines saying that it's clickbait for making it seem like if you got to the conclusion that Brandon Aiyuk feels this way because of what TJ Hushmanzada said, that has nothing to do with a headline. That is something you made up in your head. In this instance, TJ Hushmanzada spoke out of his own mouth with his own brain and said these words. Rob, I think you have the video, right?
Yep. Let me fire it up.
I believe they did overpay for Brock Purdy. I would have given Brock Purdy $47 million a year. That would have been the most I'm giving him. We needed you last year. You went 1-6 against playoff teams when we had guys hurt. Christian McCaffrey was out, Trent Williams was out, Aiyuk got hurt, and you couldn't really get it done. I think Brock Purdy is a hell of a quarterback, but I'm not giving you money. When you show me when we need you to take over, you can't take over. We need you to carry us, you can't carry us. But at one point, they said Jalen Hurts was overpaid. Now, Jalen Hurts is underpaid. Win a Super Bowl with the Eagles, now you underpaid. And so if Brock Purdy takes the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl and they win it, then his contract is well worth it. Until he does that, he's overpaid.
Okay. You ready?
Yes.
Joe Burrow's overpaid. Josh Allen's overpaid. Lamar Jackson's overpaid. Everyone not named Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, and Patrick Mahomes is overpaid. You see how dumb that sounds? Let me explain something else. When you say, oh, the stars weren't there and he wasn't able to lift them. Well, when Joe Burrow lost Jamar Chase, the Bengals didn't sniff anything. And Joe Burrow is what I consider a top 4 quarterback in the NFL. Now, pass it to next year, and Joe Burrow had one of the best seasons in football. 43 touchdowns, I believe, 9 interceptions. That's sparkling. But you know what? His defense was trash. So you want a guy to carry you and don't consider the outside circumstances and the context as to where it goes. It's like someone said, context only matters for other people and not Brock Purdy. This has got to be one of the worst takes. It means Tua Tagovailoa should get paid nothing. Jared Goff should get paid nothing. Nobody should be paid anything unless they win a Super Bowl. And there's only 3 quarterbacks out of the 29 that actually matter. Don't count Russell Wilson. Don't count Joe Flacco. Don't count Aaron Rodgers. Those don't count. Those were lifetime ago Super Bowls. It's just a terrible take, Rob. And it's also a boring, repetitive take that has been regurgitated over and over by people that don't know what's going on with this team.
This is a bizarre take from TJ Hushmanzada. I know everyone wants to, have a hot take about Brock Purdy, but the idea that he's overpaid unless he wins the Super Bowls, just say what you really want to say. What you really want to say is, I don't think Brock Purdy is any good, and I'm never going to give him any credit unless he wins a Super Bowl, because then I'll have to, because he'll have a Super Bowl. Just say that then. If that's your take, okay. But the way he phrased it there, I don't know what the hell he was on, because it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
But this all goes back to my discussion about right after Brock got paid, about how unfair he's judged and how other guys skate by all the time. You know what gets me mad? There are far more talented, physically quarterbacks. Let's say Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. I think it's obvious. We don't have to really argue that. But you're not killing Lamar Jackson for not winning a championship. You're not killing Josh Allen for not beating Patrick Mahomes. You're not killing Joe Burrow for those same things. So I guess it just means that if you're physically gifted and you're really good, then you don't have to win a Super Bowl. But if you're not as physically gifted, the only way you'll get any credit is having to win a Super Bowl.
It's frustrating because I feel like we don't treat Brock the way we treat other quarterbacks, right? Bro, Brock Purdy has the Avengers around him. Joe Burrow has never not had the Avengers around him. In college, he had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson at the same time. And now in Cincinnati, he has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, right? And I'm not trying to crap on Joe Burrow. My point is nobody ever brings that up about Joe Burrow. Oh, what? Brock Purdy has Kyle Shanahan. Well, Patrick Mahomes has Andy Reid. And again, I'm not saying Purdy's better than Mahomes, but does anybody ever bring up the fact that Patrick Mahomes has the greatest offensive coach of his generation? No, nobody ever brings it up at all. It doesn't even enter into the discussion. And I just want everybody to be treated the same. And it doesn't seem like we are with Brock Purdy. And it all, to me, Jay, stems from the fact that he was the last pick in the draft, so he can't be any good.
Brock Purdy's existence has destroyed the draft analysis crowd and has destroyed the whole draft process because of him doing so well being the last pick. And one more thing, I tend to have a higher opinion. I expect more of the quarterbacks who are vastly more talented than Brock Purdy. I love Lamar Jackson. I love him. I think that he gets a lot of unfair crap. Lamar Jackson is one of the most dynamic players in the history of the NFL. But Lamar Jackson has never won a Super Bowl. But you'll never see anyone jumping out the window saying that Lamar Jackson's overpaid, right? But he's never won a Super Bowl. Now, Patrick Mahomes, for stretches of last season, was getting all this bail. Travis Kelce's washed and he needs a wide receiver. So Patrick Mahomes needs help. Wow. Well, Josh Allen's carrying this Bills team that doesn't have anybody but Keon Coleman. Oh, Josh Allen needs help. Do you see the fundamental flaws in this argument? Purdy, he should do everything without any help. Everyone else, you got to shoot them some bail and get them some help. It's hypocritical, it's dumb, it's illogical. And you know what? I'm sorry it had to be you, TJ Houshmandzadeh, but you are the poster child right now of loud and wrong.
Quarterbacks need help, but not too much help. Quarterbacks need a good play caller, but not too good of a play caller. Quarterbacks need to use some yak, but not too much yak. It's like the tightrope that we make people walk before we decide if they're a good quarterback or not it's reaching levels that are absurd, and it doesn't make any sense. And it's frustrating. And I don't know that it's ever going to stop. Even if Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl, it'll be, well, yeah, but the defense made this play, or he missed this throw, or this was really a short throw that a guy broke a tackle. They'll just never stop.
Listen, we'll cross that road when we get there. I don't care what people say after a Super Bowl win. You can say whatever you want. The ring's on the finger. People are still going to throw things at Jalen Hurts. You know what? Ring's on the finger. I don't care what's said after. But and we shouldn't be shocked, because of the type of show that is that they're on. What is it? Something speak, whatever. It's regurgitated, surface level, hot take discussion, right? And it's good for us because we get to pick it apart and make fun of them because it helps us for content. But other than that, when you watch a show like that, you're not watching that show to be informed. You're watching that show to be entertained. And I think we should view it through that lens as well. But that doesn't stop us from pointing out the fundamental flaws, all the holes in the argument, and I can retort just as easily. Now, if you want to go to Do you think you know more than a former player? Yes. Yes, the fuck I do. Right here in this instance, this is the one where I know more than a former player. I've never played a down of NFL football. That man has. That does not mean that he is absolutely 100% objectively wrong here. And him being a football player does not absolve him from being wrong.
And I think what we have to look at too is like people are like, oh, well, when we needed you, you didn't come through. And it's like, well, yes and no, right? For example, that first game against the Rams, Brock drops back to pass in a must-have situation where they're trying to kill the clock. He hits Ronnie Bell in the hands with a pass that Ronnie Bell drops. If he catches that, there's a minute left. They kneel out the clock. The game is over. It is over. Now, Brock Purdy had a chance later in that game to do something about it. He didn't come through. So it's both of those things, right? They lose their kicker against the Cardinals and they can't score in the red zone. They're killing the clock. Jordan Mason's at the 10-yard line, ready to make it a 2-score game. He fumbles the ball. Cardinals get back in the game. Again, Brock got the ball one more time with a chance to make up for that. He didn't do it. But it's both of those things together, right? If those other guys do their job, then Brock Purdy is quote unquote elevating and is lifting the team. But can one guy continually overcome everything, no matter how often, no matter how much? No one guy can do that.
Here's your example of the whole one-score game clutch narrative and how quickly it flips. There's one name that you really need to know. Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins literally went from a guy who could not finish any of those games to a season in which he finished every single one on prime time, big game, everything. When you're in a one-score game and your numbers are 1-6 and whatever it is, the regression to the mean is coming, because how can it not? So this idea that because of one season, you can't give Brock any credit, but because of another season, that's it. It's the end all be all, again, is really, really dumb, annoying, and you really don't know how numbers work. And they are going to, even if the number goes and they're in 7, let's say they're in 7 one-score games next season, and he goes 3-4. That is an improvement from 1-6. And I would bet on that improvement. He doesn't need to be 6-1 and completely flip it, but there will be improvement in that area. How will that be? You'll have your playmakers back. The offense will be better. The defense will be better, put you in better spots. All of these things matter. Again, football is a team sport. Nobody can do it alone. And if they could have, they would have, because you wouldn't have been crying about Patrick Mahomes not having a wide receiver last season. You wouldn't have been crying about Josh Allen only having Keon Coleman. And you wouldn't be crying about any of these other guys who you say, well, they need this, they need that. Everyone needs something. But like Rob said, man, just have a good play caller, be good, but don't be too good.
It's a fine line. And the last thing I want to say about this is there is no quarterback on the planet except for maybe Josh Allen, because he's an alien. He's not from this planet.
He can carry everybody.
There's no quarterback on the planet whose numbers stay the same without weapons. Every quarterback, when the team gets worse around them, they get worse, including Patrick Mahomes. Just look at the numbers I'm saying statistically. With Tyreek Hill and a young Travis Kelce, he throws 50 touchdowns in his first season as a starter. Take those guys away last year, he threw 25 touchdowns, half as much. It matters, okay? That's just life. That's just how the game is played. So to look at Brock Purdy last year and say, see, oh, his numbers went down when he didn't have the Avengers. Yeah, that happens to everybody.
Yep. And I do agree that Josh Allen is the guy who can overcome more with less because of his legs and how dynamic he is. And he's the goal line back. And I get that part. But even still, that hasn't led to a championship. And somehow, Dawson Knox or Kincaid? One of them dropped that pass, and the defense lets up at the end, and there you go. Again, he needs help. Even Lamar Jackson. We've never seen Lamar Jackson without the Avengers, right? You get Derrick Henry last year, and you have Mark Andrews, and you have Isaiah Likely, and you get Rashad Bateman, and you've got guys. So nobody's done it alone. Nobody will ever do it alone. Peyton Manning didn't do it alone. Tom Brady didn't do it alone. Nobody's done it alone. So why does Brock Purdy have to do it alone? It's just the last thing I want to say about that.
Right, because he was the last pick. He can't be good because he was the last pick in the draft. I said it to Florio, and he disagreed, but I should have said it to Sims when I talked to him today. If Brock Purdy was a first-round pick instead of a seventh-round pick, Nobody would give a crap how much money he's getting paid. Nobody would even question whether or not he should get a new contract. But he was a 7th-round pick.
Hey, it is what it is. I don't care where you were picked, what it is. It's what have you done. There's a body of work. There's a sample size. There's, you know who you're working with. That all that stuff has to go out the window. It doesn't matter where you were drafted, right? That's the reason that Sam Darnold was able to stick around, why Geno Smith was able to stick around, why Baker Mayfield was able to stick around. But I guarantee you, if Brock Purdy had some sort of down season or he was labeled a misfit like Baker was or like Geno was, nobody would give him a second look because of where he was drafted. But I am happy that you brought up the idea of the Chris Sims interview you did. By the way, phenomenal work from Rob again. Getting Chris Sims on there. Chris Sims had a lot of good things to say. Chris Sims seems to be very much in favor of the 49ers draft. He would be one of the few mainstream media pundits who are excited. Otherwise you're looking at draft grades of D and F. But what was one of your overall takeaways or the biggest thing that Chris told you that you felt that you walked away with?
Well, I wanted to talk to him about Brock because he had a criticism of Brock that Brock had of himself. So Brock said, hey, I went back to my rookie tape when I was on it, when I was really seeing the field well with my feet and everything, and I want to get back to that. And that was basically what Chris said he saw from Brock last year. And so I actually have the clip here. I asked him, like, how does that happen? Like, how does you suddenly go from a guy that was like on it all the time to a guy that wasn't? Here's what Chris said.
You get experience and you get better and you expect more of yourself. Sometimes you go, wait, I've seen this before. I don't know if this is exactly what Kyle or the coaches taught me. He might do this. And right, you just get in your own brain to where you go, wait, no, he didn't do that. He did exactly what the coach said he was going to do. Right? Don't look too deep into it or have some, alternate feel that I feel like, oh, this might happen here. So I don't want to throw. They're not going to let Deebo Samuel open again. I'm just going to go to the number 2 read. Oh, wait, Deebo was open the next day when you watch film. Right? And so I feel like early in his career, he was probably playing it by the book a little bit. Last year, I know he went into the year talking about making some more of those off-schedule plays. And what you got to find is that fine line of like, I run the system, but those 4 or 5, 6 times a game when the system doesn't deliver for me, then I got to make a play. And I think last year a few times there was plays there from the system, but he was just like, wait, I got to make a play. I got to be one of these top guys and do that. And it was a little forced, and it led them into some bad situations.
1,100,000,000% with Sims. Dead on. Bang on. I wrote an article, and for all the criticism that Brock Purdy gets, and the main one would be check down Charlie, captain check down, whatever it is, the only quarterback with a lower check down rate than Brock Purdy was Caleb Williams. Now, 2 ways to look at that. 1, you can say, well, he's not a check down guy, but 2, I can say that he turned down the check downs more than he should have. And there is a balance when it comes to this. There's a balance of the plays there. And I want to push back on the check down term as well too, because if the pass is to Christian McCaffrey and he's the first read, that's not a check down. It's them realizing that it's him against a linebacker and we're going to get one of our better route runners to get an advantage and we're going to get a chunk play out of it. That's not a check down. A check down is 1, 2, 3 check down. That means you went through all your options and you went and you threw the ball under. A designed route to Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield is not a check down. But I would say it's funny to look at that number because you could look at that number and paint narratives on both sides and say, hey, see that? He's not a check down guy. He's actually throwing the ball down the field. Or, you know what? I would like to see that number go up just a little bit because he was turning down the single when he was trying to get doubles and triples.
100%. Every pass to a running back isn't necessarily a check down. And I do think that he went into the first year, it was like, hey, I just got to do my stuff. And we'll, we got to keep this thing afloat because it was a crazy year. 2023, he kept that train rolling. And then he went into last year and he was like, all right, I got that. Like, I got that part. Now what I need to add, what I need to build on my game is the off schedule stuff. And I think what he realizes now is you never just have that. Like, you always have to go back to the fundamentals and refresh it. And I think that Chris is right too. The making the off schedule stuff, you don't need to do that yourself. There will be 4 or 5 plays a game where that will come to you naturally. Somebody will miss a block. Your first read's going to run the wrong route. Somebody falls down when they're running a route, whatever the case may be. And I think knowing when to stay on script and when to go off script is like the next level for Brock to unlock, who again is still a very young quarterback and still has to figure all this out.
And do not discount the fact that Brock's on the sideline, Brock's on the team. He understands the defense is lacking. They're not holding. I've got to do a little bit more, especially when you get down by a bunch. You think that one score is going to get all of it back. He absolutely 100% was overcompensating this season, given the loss of talent, given that he wanted to be a leader, and that's fine. You know what? Take that experience, put it in the bank, and now let's roll this season as a more experienced, understanding leader that you can't do it all yourself, and if you do, you can find yourself in trouble. But I do think that there was times where Brock got off the field and he knew the defense was about to take the field, and he was not confident that that defense was going to hold the lead or put him in a position to get the ball back. So you're trying a little bit more. I do think that that was something that was there, but get it out of your system now, Brock. We're good, man.
And by the way, for everybody that says, well, if the Bengals just had an average defense, they would have been in the playoffs. The 49ers defense gave up more points than Cincinnati's defense last year. Just, so Brock did know that his defense wasn't going to hold the damn lead.
I love when stats bust narratives. I guess that's why you're, Rob Stats. But that's so funny to me because I would think the general perception is that they were so terrible. And I think it was a lot of the times that the Bengals were losing games 42-40, 42-39, which, it did happen. We watched that happen. But if I remember correctly, one of the games they lost in Baltimore, Joe Burrow had the ball in his hands to score on a 2-point conversion. They did not convert. That would have won the game. So, might be time to watch some games. Might be time to understand the context. Because if you're just going blindly off of numbers, it's not going to tell you everything. I think that the NFL is the king of context. You need all of it, and you'll only get all of it by watching as many games as you can and understanding all the situations.
100%. You just mentioned it with the check down thing, right? Just the raw number alone doesn't tell the full story. No one number tells the full story.
Yep. All right. It's prediction time, Rob. Last year, Steph and I, shout out to Steph, by the way, she'll probably be back next week. Last year, Steph and I had this funny thing about who's going to announce themselves as the player in the best shape of their life coming into practices in the offseason. Not the player that is in the best shape of their life, the player who is going to announce it and say it. And we were dead on. We said Deebo Samuel. Sure enough, Deebo Samuel gets into camp. I'm in the best shape of my life. Today, I have my prediction for this season, and we'll be able to check it out. It's the one who says it first. It's the one who says it first. Not the person that saw it, because we saw George Kittle say it about a certain player. We'll talk about that. It's the player that goes to the podium and says, I'm in the best shape of my life. I've finally come up with an answer, Rob Guerrera, and it is Christian McCaffrey. He's going to go to that podium, and he's going to say, I feel nothing but in the best shape of my life. Given the time off, given how hard I've worked, I'm in the best shape of my life. Christian McCaffrey's my answer.
That'd be interesting because I do think he wants to prove to everybody that, hey, I'm not injury prone. I'm not breaking down. I'm going to be good to go. And he does, quite frankly, have to prove it. I texted you before the show started. Ben Solak has a good column on ESPN.com, 100 things to watch in the NFL season. And he talks about Christian McCaffrey. And Solak points out Next Gen Stats had CMC's maximum speed in the games he played last year at 16.4, 16.7, 16.1, and 17.4 miles per hour. Obviously, that is not at Christian McCaffrey's best. That would have been his fastest time last year, would have been his 5th worst time in 2023. So CMC does have to prove that he is in the best shape of his life and that he is healthy and that he can withstand the pounding that he's going to take this year.
I'll shoot him some bail because we didn't need those numbers to know that Christian McCaffrey wasn't himself right away, right? And he's coming back, and he, even in the Tampa game, you're just like, yeah, he's definitely rounding into shape, right? And everybody talks about what's training camp for. Do you need training camp? You need training camp to start getting hit and start, almost like, when you have a callus and you're like burning the callus or you're poking it, it just gets harder. That's what training camp is for, because you're going to take a beating, but you want to start having that callus right there during training camp. I'm going to shoot him some bail on this one just because we knew that he was rounding into shape and he only had a few games to prove it. And then obviously the season went away. So am I super confident that he's just going to return to form? I think a level of skepticism should be there. Absolutely. But I am more inclined to believe that number will go up with a full offseason training camp and rolling into the season completely healthy.
He is going to not have to, he won't have to say it himself. He may, but he won't have to say it himself because the beat will be on it. Remember in 2023 when he came in and everybody was like, oh my God, Christian McCaffrey's so good. He's going so hard. He's taking it so serious. He's phenomenal. Christian McCaffrey setting the tone here in camp. And I think there was one day where Jennifer Lee Chan literally asked every 49ers player that came to the podium about how hard Christian McCaffrey was playing. They'll do it for him. If he looks good in these OTAs, they'll do it.
Okay, so my selection is Christian McCaffrey. What is your selection for the 49ers player who will declare themselves in the best shape of their life?
My thing is a little biased because George Kittle did mention it.
He did.
But I was going to go with Jacob Cowing because apparently Kittle said Jacob Cowing has put on like a bunch of muscle this offseason and he looks really good. And that is something, especially for all of us, it's noticeable, right? We can easily look and say, boom, there, wow, that guy really looks phenomenal. Look how much muscle, like Drake Jackson, right? Drake Jackson was the same thing. Oh my God, Drake Jackson just transformed his body. I think it's going to be Jacob Cowing. He's going to have more opportunity to get out on the field. And I think that we'll be praising the 4th round pick of a couple years ago.
I love this take. I still believe in Jacob Cowing. I was blown away by his tape during that draft season. I implored the 49ers to take a look at him and draft him, even if it took them all of the clock to make sure that they got it. You know, I'm glad that they worked whatever through their system. But I still really believe in Jacob Cowing, not only a speedster, I think a phenomenal route runner, a tough receiver as well, too. Not afraid to go over the middle, can make plays. I know he's small, but there's a lot of wide receivers who have absolutely went on to have healthy careers without being 6'6", 260 pounds at wide receiver. Not everyone wins the same exact way. And I still believe in Jacob Cowing. I would love to see a second-year leap from him. I really think he's still a great player.
And Rob D on YouTube makes a good point. We could see Jacob Cowing in the Pearsall YouTube videos looking a little bigger also. I agree, man. I really wanted to see Cowing. He was a guy that got a lot of hype, and it wasn't like I don't need to see Chris Conley out there catching passes for any reason. I really don't. So I hope that they give him a shot this year. You know, Brock kind of talked about that too, about like, I think his exact quote was, we got guys that can move between Pearsall. What I really think he meant was like, we got guys that can really run good routes between Aiyuk when he's healthy, Pearsall when he's out there. We know Juwan Jennings can at least get himself open on 3rd down. If Cowing can do it, Watkins supposedly is a guy that's kind of shifty and rubbery. Like that may help in a lot of areas, Jay. Specifically, I think the red zone where they have really, really struggled most of the time.
And, you know, before we get to the super chat, Brett, who's a channel member, shout out to you, man. What's the point of having fast wide receivers to go deep when the O-line can't hold up long enough for the play to develop? He's not a one-trick deep guy. He just happens to be the fastest one on the roster. But his routes, he can win in any way you want. Do you want to slant? Do you want to sluggo? He can win any way that you want. And I would say one of the better wide receivers at creating separation. However, it's hard to see that on film when there's less than 25 snaps in almost every single game. And the only game that he actually played was that game where Juwan Jennings got thrown out. So if you think Jacob Cowing is just a straight line 9 route guy, I would implore you to look into him a little bit more because he's far better than that. And he can run far better routes than that.
He's fast and he's quick. And those aren't the same thing. And he has
Right.
both, which should help.
Right. Absolutely. The super chat, you want to put it up? Okay. Chris Waddell, thank you for the donation. I think they'll be selling Jair Brown hard to us this offseason and Burford. You know what's funny? The Jair Brown stuff has already happened. By the way, I still believe that Jair Brown is a good football player as well. He has to prove it, though. He has to prove it. And we're going to find out whether I'm right or not and who's going to start. We don't know what the significance of the Malik Mustafa injury is. You know, at first it was starting, hey, he's not going to play for half the season. He may just miss a game. We don't know. He may not miss anything. But Jair Brown, it's already starting. If you looked on his social media today, he was posting videos of him in 2023 locking up A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith one-on-one in coverage. And I think Brad posted it if you want to find it. But he was posting film clips of him in the slot against A.J. Brown, who, by the way, PFF has the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. We're going to talk about that in a little bit as well, too, and where, if any, 49ers fall on that list. But it's already starting with Tig. It's already starting with him, and he's kind of tooting his own horn when it comes to that. So it's funny that you brought that up because it's not wrong. Here you go. That's him against Devonta Smith right there. Like, that's not an easy challenge for a safety in the slot. And that's something that corners who are cornerbacks, they struggle with. That's A.J. Brown. That is the guy that PFF says is the number 1 wide receiver in football. By the way, the highest graded wide receiver against single coverage 3 years in a row. That is something I did not know.
You can win some money with that bet. Now, that's interesting from Jair Brown because this game is obviously from 2023.
2023.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So is this a Jair Brown post? Is this a, hey, now I'm in a scheme or with a DC that, whose system I can work better in? Or do you think it's just, hey, I'm going to be good next year?
Right. And I think, again, he hears everything. He wants to prove himself. He knows that they invested in him. They think the world of him. He's a great young man, but that has to turn into an opportunity, and he's feeling the heat. So what do? You get out, you get out there, you put out your social media stuff, remind people what you could have been, you work your ass off, and you get back out there. I'll be honest with you, Jair Brown, that's not a bad call either. I could see that popping up, especially considering we don't know the full significance of Malik Mustafa's injury.
Yeah, that Malik Mustafa thing could be mad. If he can come back, relatively soon or not miss any time, that makes such a difference. Because who are the safeties right now? It's Tig and Richie Grant.
Jason Pinnock. Richie
what the hell
Grant.
is Jason Pinnock?
Marcus Siegel. You're essentially thinking that one of these guys is going to start, right? So I think if we're talking about that, we can get a leg up on this. And Benali P, thank you for the comment. I choose to blame Sorensen for Jair Brown's development. Stalling out, think Saleh could fix him. I agree as well, too. I love that the way that was phrased. That just made me chuckle. I choose to blame Sorensen. So many fans blame Sorensen for everything. And, can't really blame them for that, right? But speaking of PFF's wide receiver list, PFF had ranked their 32 quarterbacks. They have moved on to wide receivers. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the linebacker list just came out as well. Haven't had the chance to check it out, but we all know if Fred Warner's not number 1, we riot and call PFF guys a bunch of nerds. But let's talk about wide receiver. Number 1, A.J. Brown. Now, if you ask me, I think Justin Jefferson is and has been the best wide receiver in the world. Jamar Chase had an insane season, and he definitely has a claim at it. I would have had them 1 and 2. But A.J. Brown, when you were looking at these numbers, number 1 on single coverage for 3 straight seasons, I did not see that coming at all. This is a fair argument, although I disagree. I would put it Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown.
I think that if A.J. Brown played for a different team, this opinion would be a lot more well-known. But the Eagles, look, they're a run-first team. Jalen Hurts has a Super Bowl. I'm not trying to bash him, but let's be honest, he is not the best pure passer in the NFL. Let's just throw that out there. But, A.J. Brown's a bad man. And I think if he was on a different team, I think most people would not be as shocked by this.
Would be fire if he was in just like a pass first offense, just just like throwing him the football, it'd be, and with no one else around. But Rob, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, very good wide receivers. We're not here to debate all these things. I'd have CeeDee Lamb over Puka Nacua, by the way. Nico Collins is very good. So is Tyreek Hill. So we're at number 8. Number 9 is Mike Evans, who I think is the most underrated football player in the recent history of the game. He's doing things that only a guy named Rice is doing, and everyone just keeps being like, who cares? Terry McLaurin, who everybody knows I absolutely adore and would do anything for. Drake London is a very good wide receiver. Drake London, that's a little bit high, and I have to read why. London has been a standout since entering the league in 2022. His cumulative WAR, wins above replacement, of 1.21 over the past 3 seasons ranks 12th among wide receivers, and his 90.1 receiving grade in 2024 was 5th best in the league. All that with Kirk Cousins playing that poorly. But I disagree with that as well, too. Malik Neighbors, number 12, Garrett Wilson, number 13, both phenomenal wide receivers. Absolutely. T. Higgins is massively underrated. I think Brian Thomas is the one out of the top 15 that has a chance to jump into the top 10 discussion immediately if he shouldn't be already, but we can kind of stay off that one.
He just had a quarterback.
I knew you were going there, but I let you have it. Devontae Adams, who is replacing Cooper Kupp in Los Angeles. Don't remind me. Thanks a lot. Even at his age, is still phenomenal. One of the best release wide receivers in the history of the game. Here we go. Devonta Smith, number 17. Chris Godwin coming off a massive injury, dislocated kneecap. And there he is. Number 19, Brandon Aiyuk. Now, Devonta Smith and Brandon Aiyuk are tied together because of the offseason in which they had their extensions. And we used both of their stat lines to put side by side to compare who deserved more and you know what. And again, now we all know what happened last season, but I want to remind you about 2023. The second highest graded wide receiver in the NFL behind only Tyreek Hill. 7th in the NFL in receiving yards, 1,342. 101 targets. Listen to me. 101 targets. 75 receptions. 1,342 yards on 75 receptions. 17.9 yards per reception. The only wide receiver with a higher yards per reception was crazy George Pickens. So I don't think we have a problem with, hey, you know, this is the problem with Brandon Aiyuk is his talent. It's when is he going to round into form? And worst case scenario, will he round into form? I think this is a fine spot for him based on how last season went.
The injury just really clouded everything because he was rounding into form and then he was gone. And we never got to see him after that. And I think he would have had a fantastic year, quite honest with you. And now I'm kind of interested, Jay, because talk about the doghouse. He is, I don't know if he's in the Shanahan doghouse, but man, everybody is blasting him. Fans are done with Brandon Aiyuk. The beat writers are talking about him like he is not a cancer. I don't want to use that word, but just a malcontent in the locker room. I heard Barrows. Yeah, like Barrows and Kawakami were talking about like they want to see him in OTAs. Like, is he engaged? Is he involved? Like, what happened? Because he wasn't always like this, but I do feel like there is a Brandon Aiyuk black cloud. That's a good way to term it.
Yeah, and it's all public perception. Brandon Aiyuk being healthy all of this season probably doesn't change much. But when you're given the offseason and you have the social media antics and then you have the contract go all the way up to the last moment, then you get signed and you clearly need to round yourself into shape. And then you have the shorts incident. Him and Buddy Hield, both of them don't know what shorts to wear. All of them and everything kind of changes. You're going on podcasts. You're talking about wanting to play with other with other quarterbacks and other teams, and you're praising Mike Tomlin. That is going to leave a bad taste in fans' mouths. But do not let any of that cloud you from who the guy is on the field. And that's the issue. If you want to be sick of the antics, if you are upset with how things went, fine. But it doesn't mean that Brandon Aiyuk all of a sudden isn't good at football. But if you're going to take the stance of he is injured and coming back, and I don't think he's going to bounce back, then that just means you're betting against that. That doesn't mean you know that for certain. So while I can understand the outcry against his social media antics and the way that he was acting, although that doesn't bother me at all. I know that that's all the negotiating tactics that happen now. Didn't bother me personally. Didn't lose an ounce of sleep. I still know what the football player is, and I think we've forgotten that. And I think that's what's lost in all of this under the plot is that people are saying, well, the 49ers need a wide receiver one. He's there. He's there. He's there. And if it's not him, then who? Because it's nobody else on that roster. It's Brandon Aiyuk when he's healthy and ready to go.
The 49ers have 2 first-round picks at wide receiver, right? They're for Aiyuk and Pearsall should be their starting wideouts. I mean, obviously, when Aiyuk gets back, like, there should be no question. Like, oh, the Niners need a number one. Well, they drafted 2 guys in the first round. One of them should be it.
Exactly. And look, we all love Juwan Jennings, but Juwan Jennings is not a separator. He's a jump ball guy, and a lot of his wide open moments and times that's manufactured. If you talk about, hey, the system has you wide open, I don't think you can point to any player besides Juwan Jennings if you want a prime example of a Kyle Shanahan system getting people open. Literally, there's plays on tape, and if you guys want me to send examples, I'm bored because I can't walk around. My legs hurt from dancing at this damn wedding. I'm bored. I can show you. There's definitely ways that they've created releases where he doesn't even have to get touched or breathed on by the wide receiver because of switch releases or because of some motion that they've sent. That was manufacturing getting a guy wide open. Obviously, Juwan Jennings is a very good wide receiver. We love him. I'm not taking any shots at him. But when people say, oh, Aiyuk's a product of the system, you might want to look at 15 a little bit more harder this year if you really want to see product of the system.
And it's funny. People love to say, well, Brock's got Kyle. Brock's got Kyle. Or what you're saying then is these guys are wide open because Kyle is letting them get open. So then talk about the wide receivers in that context, right? We always talk about how it benefits a quarterback, but it also benefits a wide receiver. And that's why Aiyuk is so good, because he gets the benefit of Kyle doing his thing and also being a kick-ass route runner at the same time.
When Kyle Shanahan's offenses have been at their highest has been when he's had a true X. Andre Johnson in Houston, Julio Jones in Atlanta, and in 2023, when Brandon Aiyuk was a true X. That is not by accident, and that is not a coincidence. It is having a man who can win one-on-one all with everyone else getting open and being open, and the attention that draws. That is not a coincidence, Rob.
He uses Aiyuk to manipulate the defense because he knows how teams are going to cover BA, and so he knows how to expose the weak points that open up as a result of that. I always say Kyle's offense is like a clock. Every part of it works together seamlessly. And when it's rolling, man, it is a damn thing of beauty. One little screw up can blow up the whole thing, unfortunately. But man, when it is rolling, it is so much fun to watch.
Absolutely. 2023. Please come back. All right. We have other things to talk about, right, Rob? Let's see. We did Chris Sims. We did the wide receivers. OTAs. Okay. I guess the things that you're looking for, because I believe OTAs started today, but nobody was allowed in. So we'll get no sort of news or anything like that for whatever reason. I don't know if that's the collective bargaining agreement. Maybe just the way the 49ers are doing. Either way, no one will be there to give us this player looks like the best player in football history, and this player is never going to play it down, and we'll compare those notes. But what are some of the things that you're looking to, because now we have no contract holdouts, what are you looking to finalize on this team in terms of maybe position battles or just development from players overall?
The first practice that's open to the media at OTAs is Thursday, so we won't get anything until then. Kyle will speak on Thursday as well, so that'll be interesting. I want to see the defensive guys, and I know they still haven't signed Alfred Collins. Actually, only 2 second-round picks have signed their contracts, Jay, and it's the 2 second-rounders that got fully guaranteed deals. And every other second-rounder is now saying, I want a fully guaranteed deal, and no one has given, the teams haven't caved yet, but we'll start to see if that ends up happening. But the preseason and the OTAs and the training camp are really, really important, especially for the 49ers. That's when they do their teaching. That's when they're showing you how things work. Once the season starts, they leave you behind if you don't know what you're doing. There's no time to catch up. And so it's crucial for Alfred Collins and Michael Williams and CJ West and all these guys to get in there. Ricky Pearsall, throw him in there because he missed basically the whole preseason last year. All these guys to get in there and get that, because if you don't, you never catch up. I feel like the coaches kind of lose faith in you or just don't have trust in you. And it's crucially important. So I want to see these guys in there and working and doing it, because it does matter, even if it doesn't count in the standings.
NFL playbooks might as well be like computer code, right? How hard it is to digest. Now, compound that with a Kyle Shanahan offense, which is very long-winded with the terms, and that's where you'll get your hint of what to do. The point of OTAs and every single phase is to get you in. We'll start here. You start learning that. We'll bring you back when it's time. You start learning something new, just like school, right? They don't teach you decimals first before they teach you how to add. You have to learn how to add, to do this, to do that. That's exactly what this offseason program is for everyone. When you compound that with how complicated a Kyle Shanahan playbook is, and it is really complicated because a simple term that is changing can change the direction of the play exactly where it's supposed to be, which is why Kyle has trust issues, because sometimes people miss those little details. But that's the point of the offseason phases. It's compounding. Learn this, study it, come back, learn this, study it, come back. And then by the time you get to training camp and you get the whole playbook and everything's there, you're not looking at it like it's written in a foreign language. So that is important, especially for rookies. Now, if we're talking about development, everyone seems to tell me that Jacob Cowan, the reason that he couldn't get on the field is because he didn't know the playbook, although we don't know that for sure. I love how everybody's so sure of that, if you guys know how that's possible other than hearsay, or you're just trying to find a way to justify him not being on the field, just let me know. But if we're talking about Jacob Cowan, how do you get yourself in front of everybody? How do you push yourself ahead? It's by being ahead, by being in there from the second year, and then on top of your physical acumen and showing how you've grown as a player. All of this matters for first and second year players. Now, for the players that understand it in and out, maybe this isn't as important, right? I think Trent Williams can do this with his eyes closed. George Kittle can do this with his eyes closed. That's fine. It's nice to have all of them there because you want to just see the guys together and you don't want to hear that nobody's missing. But these off-season programs are critical for first and second year players because of how complicated an NFL playbook is, on top of it being a Kyle Shanahan playbook.
And what does Kyle always talk about? For years, with Trey Lance especially, but for everybody, it's we teach it to you at OTAs and mandatory minicamp, and then we go away for 40 days, and then when training camp starts, we want to see, do you still remember everything we taught you? Have you taken it to a new level? Do you have it down cold? Can we ask you about it inside and out? Can you take what we told you to work on in these 40 days? And did you work on that? Can we see that? Kyle talks about it relentlessly. That's how he evaluates these guys. So if you want to know why X player isn't seeing the field or getting snaps, it's probably because whatever they told him at the OTAs, he did not do in a way to satisfy the coaches when he showed up for training camp. So that's why this is like the building blocks for the season going forward.
Absolutely. Everything is for a reason. And it's not just to keep people away. And so much of what's being done in the offseason has no sort of physicality to it. You can't touch anybody. You guys remember when Demo put out the video of him, being a little too, harsh with Austin Watkins? Got fined, right? And Kyle Shanahan said he found that out, and was really upset with him. That type of stuff is not going to be there. This is all for walkthrough, rapport, culture building, buy-in, that type of stuff. But it's all one step in front of the other. Again, you can't jump to decimals and fractions without understanding how to multiply, divide, add, and subtract. And I think all of that is being added in there. I will say what I'm really interested in is the second linebacker position. And there's still time for the 49ers to absolutely add somebody if they wanted, right? CJ Mosley comes to mind. Kaiser White is somebody that people have been floating out there. But there is D. Winters and there is Nick Martin. Who's going to have the leg up? Who's going to have the opportunity to try and kick down the door? That's going to be very interesting because we still right now, obviously we shouldn't know it's May 27th, although a lot of teams know where, a lot of their players are going to be playing. May 27th, we don't have an idea. We have a feeling of who it might be, but we don't have an idea who's going to be playing next to Fred Warner.
They want it to be Nick Martin. I think they're off the D. Winters train. They had every opportunity to crown that guy this offseason, and they haven't done it. They want it to be Nick Martin. Nick Martin was the guy they got killed for the most for drafting. People are like, oh, you took him 2 rounds too early. He's a small linebacker that's going to get knocked around. They got raked over the coals for that Nick Martin pick. They want him to be the guy. And look, the Niners need that guy. That's why Dre and Fred worked so well together, because Dre just ran all over the place and destroyed people. That's the thing Nick Martin is good at doing. So they need it to work out. That would be a perfectly complementary piece to what they have with Fred Warner. I don't know if it's going to, but let's be honest, that's the guy they want to take over for Fred. Part of the reason they like him is because they like his communication. They like that, the way he can lead and have the green dot on the helmet and all that stuff.
Scheme aside, Here's how the 49ers intend to improve their run defense. Get a bunch of big bodies up front, have your 2 defensive tackles swarm the blocks, have your one-on-one with your edges, and have these small creases for your smaller, faster linebackers to get in there and knock the run off. That is the simplest way without getting into X's and O's and scheme and how Robert Saleh is going to do this. Now, who does that fit? It fits Nick Martin, it feels like, who plays far more downhill, far crazier, and they saw the same thing that I'm not saying he's Dre Greenlaw. I don't like that comp for other than their play style. I don't think that that's fair. They play very hard and they're sideline to sideline, but the way that they're going to set this up is we have fast, small linebackers, guys who are converted safeties, who are going to be able to slip through those little cracks and get in the backfield, and we're going to knock the run off early because of the big boys up front.
Fat guys up front, fast guys behind them. That's as simple as I could make it. I'm not trying to body shame anybody, but that is like the most simple breakdown of the 49ers defense, and it could work perfectly.
I think it's a very good way to look at it because, again, the wide nine's not going anywhere. And the idea of it is you need the space eaters as defensive tackles to allow Nick Bosa and Michael Williams to just get one-on-one shots without allowing anybody to come off and chip. That's really what the crux of it is. Now, when you don't have space eaters and you have guys that are pushing people and knocking them off the edge, and those linebackers you have to redirect runners to the middle of the field to the linebackers. When they're getting that edge and you're getting thrown off the edge, which is why they got Michael Williams, that's when you're going to see the wide nine completely suffer. But if you stick to the values of it, if you stick to the principle of it, and more importantly, if you have the personnel to dictate it, then that's when you're going to see a lot less complaining about wide nine.
Yes, I completely agree. You have to execute the defense as it's built to be executed. It was like in the movie Moneyball when Art Howe refuses to play the people that Billy Beane got in the roles that he's supposed to play him in, and Billy Beane just gets pissed and trades all of them so that Art Howe basically has no other recourse but to do what Billy Beane wants. You have to use guys and use the scheme in the way that it was designed, and they're much better set up this year to be able to do that, like you said.
100%. I always say scheme can lift players, but if you don't have players don't you can't do anything with the scheme, right? Like it doesn't matter how well the scheme is. Sometimes it can lift players into good spots, but if you don't have the personnel to dictate it and do it, then it's not going to matter. And you're going to say, hey, that's the scheme. But you know what? It could be the players. But I see the vision. Now let's see if they can execute it, right? I see the vision. Now, another thing that I think is kind of interesting is special teams. And no, not the kicker and the punter. I'm talking about the people who have to actually field the punts and kicks and the people who have to actually block. I'm talking about the people who really have to do the things on special teams that are important. I wonder, and this goes back to my Jacob Cowing narrative and propaganda, I guess if you want to call it, if the drafting of Junior Bergen or Watkins allows that player to now fall into punt return duties, kick return duties, and Jacob Cowing can focus solely on being a wide receiver. And I think that is kind of the way that I'm going to push this narrative. So I'm interested to see who's going to be leading when it comes to that aspect, because it might be a sign of who's about to jump up this depth chart. Wouldn't you say, Rob?
I completely agree. Look, they have said Junior Bergen's here to be a returner. Period. End of story. The special teams coach has said he's my guy. He played with my kid. I love him. Like they drafted him to do that job. So I think they're going to give him every opportunity to win that job, which is then going to free up other guys to do other things. And hopefully it does work out for Jacob Cowing to just go be a wide receiver. Don't worry about this returning game. And hopefully that all works out. And that could be a massive change and a massive weapon for this 49ers team, because they have desperately, my whole life, they've had like 2 good years of a returner, and both of those years were Ted Ginn. Otherwise, it's been nothing but crap. Richie James, Dexter Carter. I mean, nothing from the return game.
Richie James is the last 49ers returner to have a kickoff return. Ted Ginn is the last one from 2012 to have a punt return. That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Think about that. 2012 was a long ass time ago, man. I mean, my God.
It's 2012 in my mind some days. It may seem like it's so far away, but in my mind, there's certain weeks and days that 2012 is still in my mind because you think about that season as well. Chris, man, killing it with the super chats. Really appreciate you, man. We just got to pray. No soft tissue issues with the defensive rookies because, as history tells us, the 49ers put those guys on the bench till midseason. And another way to view this is, let's get everybody in here, start working out those soft tissues, because I don't need you coming in all of a sudden in week 1 and just running out there and pop. You gotta make sure that you get yourself conditioned. Again, off season is not only to learn, for culture building, buy-in, all of those things, but it's also to start to build that callus and harden the callus as the season goes on, because you are going to get hit. You are going to be hurt all season, but you have to start conditioning your body, and that's what training camp's about.
You touched on this. You kind of dismissed it, but we were talking about who's going to be the training camp hero. Vic Tafur had a lengthy story in The Athletic about Jake Moody and how Jake Moody has changed his kicking mechanics, and he's gone to now a 2-step approach instead of taking 3 steps, and how he's sacrificing distance for accuracy. And he went to Robbie Gould to try and figure, how to do it and all this stuff. Like, that is definitely going to be, if Moody comes out and starts hitting kicks, he'll be the training camp hero this year.
All right. If that's the case, if that's the case, you can look at it 2 ways. One, your training camp hero is a kicker. That means none of the position players did enough to show. True. But it could be that there was no absolute drama and everything was perfect. So you could say that as well too. I don't know. I don't like to live in a world where my training camp hero isn't a running back, a backup tight end, a defensive tackle, a cornerback, a football player. But if I want to be optimistic, it might just mean that everything went to plan. There's no issues. And the one thing that we can point to is that the kickers finally figured it out and changed his stance like Happy Gilmore, as a golfer.
It's a good article. There's a ton of quotes in there from Moody talking about, clearly, you know what? Jake Moody, smart. He's getting a good PR out there early. He's already working on the campaign. That's smart by Jake Moody.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is narrative building, right? For a while, so many people were telling you, this player was playing very well. Sometimes we're there and we're like, what do you mean? What did he exactly play well in? And the players that we thought played well, nobody's really saying anything about. So you wonder where that's coming from. Is that the agent? But maybe we'll leave that for another day of tinfoil 49ers conspiracies unlocked, which is, maybe we could do a whole episode about that as well too. Rob, thank you so much for stepping in. I do like the new time slot. We're kind of playing around with it. If you guys like this time slot better for the Bully Ball podcast, please let us know in the comments, or you can drop them in the comments right here in the live chat. Definitely just trying to test this out before the season goes to see if this leads to, more audience engagement, which is what we want. And thank you guys for watching. As always, make sure you subscribe to the Gold Standard Podcast Network, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Like and subscribe to the channel. Over 50,000 subs. Can't believe it. I have a YouTube channel. You might want to like and subscribe over there as well, too. That's Rob Stats Guerrera, @Stats on Fire on Twitter. Jason Aponte 2103 on Twitter. Thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, let's go Niners.